Welcome to the Kiondaga Lodge Winter Banquet. Tonight, we are gathering to recognize the accomplishments of Kiondaga Lodge in 2020. We're there to celebrate those airmen and scouters who made it possible and look forward to 2021. First, I would like to say welcome and thank you for making the time to attend this evening. This winter banquet is definitely different from any other that we have ever had. Only very few of us are here tonight so that we can stream to you watching on your personal device at home. 2020 was a different year, but 2021 is upon us. I look forward to the great accomplishments that we can strive for this year. Once again, welcome. I'm glad you could join us. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce Andreas, or Andy Hardgrave, our Lodge Vice Chief of Activities for the previous year. He will get things started for us this evening and lead us in our obligation as airmen.
Good evening. Although the service that the Order of the Arrow provides is valuable to scouting, the main benefit is less obvious. The Order's primary concern is you, and our Order's function is to spread the spirit of brotherhood and cheerful service. You do the work of the Order in your home, your troop, and your school or workplace, as you keep the fire of the Scout law, oath, and the obligation of the Order of the Arrow alive in your words and deeds. More than anything else, your example of cheerful service to others accomplishes the Order's aim. The obligation is one way that we remind ourselves of our special duties. Please stand, raise the Scout sign, and join me in reaffirming our duty by saying the obligation. I do hereby promise on my honor as a Scout that I will always and faithfully observe and preserve the traditions of the Order of the Arrow. Wimaktadi, Wigalasik, Witahemaway. I will always regard the ties of brotherhood in the Order of the Arrow as lasting, and will seek to preserve a cheerful spirit even in the midst of irksome tasks and weighty responsibilities, and will endeavor, so far as my power lies, to be unselfish in service and devotion to the welfare of others. 2. You may be seated. Luke Schweickart, will you please come forward to introduce the 2020 and 2021 Lodge officers?
Thank you, Andy. As I said earlier, one of tonight's purposes is to recognize those individuals who made 2020 a great year for Kiondaga Lodge. I would now like to take a moment and introduce all of the outgoing and incoming officers. To the 2020 officers, this year would not have been possible without each one of you. Thank you. In 2020, our Vice Chief of Activities was Andreas Hardgrave. He provided an unending amount of cheerful service in all regards, especially games at fellowship weekends and planning our special events. He also worked with our communications team over this year. If you had any fun at any of our events, which I'm certain that you have, you owe it to him and his team. Our Lodge Vice Chief of Elections was Logan Carter. He did an amazing job coordinating all aspects of the ceremony teams. Logan did a great job at adapting our ceremonies and inductions to follow the revised guidelines put on us for COVID-19. Our Vice Chief of Publications was Jacob Connor. Our newsletter and new Lodge website is all thanks to him and his team. He worked tirelessly to keep up our social media profiles, our newsletters, and our email blasts. Jacob did a wonderful job at adapting our communication strategy for this past year. Finally, our Lodge Vice Chief of Finance was Jace Limp. You may have seen him running around the trading post, and without him and his staff, we would not have near as much fun at our events, since he provides the squishies. With all sincerity, I would like to thank my 2020 officers. As a token of my appreciation, I would like to present each of you with a stainless steel BSA mug, an OA sticker, and a Lodge flap from this year on behalf of the Lodge. Again, thank you for your dedication and service to our Lodge in 2020. Before we move on, it is equally as important to recognize our Lodge advisor and associate advisors. Please congratulate Adam Crone for continuing his service as Lodge advisor. Our associate advisors include Cindy and Dave Winkleman, serving as our ceremony team advisors, Mike Huther, serving as our Alingamat and Brotherhood Conversion Committee advisor, Tim Peters and Brian Connor for their work as our service committee advisors, Wayne Carter for serving as our selection committee advisor, and finally, Linda Schweickart for serving as our finance committee advisor. Thank you to these advisors who definitely keep the teams of our Lodge ticking. In 2021, you will see some changes to the Lodge administration, and you'll get to know them a little bit better later on in our program. The Lodge Chief will now be Andreas Hardgrave. The Vice Chief of Activities will be Samuel Otway. Our new Secretary of Recording will be Joshua Robbins. Additionally, I'd like to welcome Wayne Carter to his new position as our first Associate Lodge Advisor. Now it is my great pleasure to once again invite Andy Hardgrave to introduce our next part of the program.
At this point, we would normally start having our meal, so go ahead and break out some microwave pizza. I would now like to introduce our 2021 Vice Chief of Activities to lead us in an interactive activity. Make sure you're at your phone or your computer so you can participate.
Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Before we get started, we're going to play a trivia game over our Lodge and leadership, as well as some of the OA history. So using the Facebook Live poll that we're sending out, please go ahead and join that. Give it your best shot, and we'll be back with you in a couple of minutes. Wow, I didn't even know the section leaders, and I made the trivia.
That's rough. Well, I definitely didn't go to the first network, so I got that question wrong.
Tough luck.
It is. So, Luke, is it time to move on with the rest of our program? Yes.
Thanks for the fun activity, Sam. I think I got every single one of those questions right. I don't know about you guys, but I sure did. Next, I'd like to invite our keynote speaker for this evening. Joey Grabill is a Vigil Honor member of Sakima Lodge and currently serves as our section chief. Joey is an Eagle Scout, and he has been an active arrowman in his lodge and section since 2016. He has also served the OA as a 3-year staff member for the National Leadership Seminar. Joey currently studies at Vincennes University, and he looks forward to his next steps in his scouting career and in his life. It is my pleasure to introduce Joey Grabill to give our keynote address for this evening.
I'd like to thank y'all for having me here tonight. I'd like to introduce myself a little bit more. My name is Joey Grabill. I come from South Bend, Indiana, way up north, home of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I'm a freshman at Vincennes University, so way down in your neck of the woods. And I currently serve as your section chief. I know some of you aren't necessarily familiar with what a section is or what we do, so let me explain. A section is a combination of all the local lodges in a certain geographic area. Our area consists of basically all of Indiana, give or take a couple of counties. But the section has a couple of key responsibilities. The first is to offer support in any way we can to the lodge and their leadership. We do this through coming to events like this, or at your fall fellowship when I had the opportunity to come. We also help by connecting your leaders with others in the section that may be facing similar issues when it comes to statistics or membership retention. And the next is we hold a couple of events, specifically 2 of them. The first is our ACT conference. This ACT conference is leadership, or is a training geared toward lodge leadership, where we address some of the struggles our organization is facing. The second actually is way more relevant to everybody, and that event is Section Conclave. So Conclave is a huge event where we get airmen from across the state together for one big event. And this year, y'all actually have the super awesome opportunity to host this conclave at your own camp. At this event, we really only do fun activities, right? No work at all, which is kind of my favorite part. But we have a couple of shows similar to NOAC, if anybody's ever been to a National Order of the Arrow conference. We throw these awesome American Indian activities and our annual ceremonies competitions, which I hope to see Kiondaga putting forth a team this year. I know I got to help you guys in a couple of ceremonies earlier this year, which was a lot of fun. But that being said, I hope I get to see you all at Conclave, and I hope you all get a wristband at your next in-person event promoting it. Again, the date which you guys will be hosting is April 16th to the 18th. For more information, feel free to ask myself, after my speech, or ask Luke, my section vice chief. I'm sure he'd be happy to help, or even any of your lodge officers, because I know all of them have been to a conclave or know of it and can speak for it. So. But I also wanted to talk to you all about my own experience in the OA, and not just at the section level. So I guess I'll start way back, right? I was inducted into the order in 2016 and became pretty active soon after. I was in a Lingmat the very next week and found myself in countless leadership opportunities at the lodge level. But if you had gone back and told little old first-class Joey that I would have the opportunity to meet people way outside of my own troop, outside of my own council, get to go to high adventure bases, have the opportunity to become a leader to more than 1,000 youth in our program, I would have just straight up laughed in your face, right? But in truth, this organization has given me more than I could ever imagine. I've had the opportunity to serve as a lodge chief. I got to sit on my council's executive board as a youth, just like my dad did when he was a youth in the program, let alone getting to serve on it while he was our council president. I've also gotten to go to both a national and a world jamboree at the summit, staffing both times with the Order of the Arrow, getting to meet airmen and scouters I still talk to this day from different walks of life, from outside of our country, and just build those relationships. I've gotten to travel across the country with the OA, getting to go to the Florida Sea Base, to Philmont. I actually think that the best experience I've had getting to travel was just into Bloomington at NOAC in 2018. But no matter what I say, I know I love this organization, and I truly am getting the most that I can out of it. But this past December, I had an experience that changed the entire outlook on this organization for me. I actually was invited to go to an Airman's Eagle Scout Court of Honor. I got a call from the scout. His name is Martin. And he said, Joey, you've impacted my scouting career in ways I can't thank you enough for. And I was wondering if you'd come to my Court of Honor. And this meant a lot to me. This was the same Court of Honor he wasn't inviting his scoutmaster to for COVID reasons. He only had close family and a couple of really key adults that impacted him, and I was one of two youth there. But once Martin had been presented with the rank of Eagle, he gave a brief speech, and in his speech, he said something that gave me chills, and I've actually got a speech here with me, and I'd like to read it straight from it. He said, "That leads me to the Order of the Arrow. This group taught me more about leadership than I could have ever imagined was possible. Ever since my early days of asking a million questions to nowadays where I can hardly find the time to participate, OA has been such a powerful impact on my life. All the last-minute ceremony teams, the rushed memorizing of lines, the late night ceremony reviews. These all gave me one of the greatest friend groups I'll ever know. And thank you to all who have helped me in my journey as a scout. For me, this was the first opportunity or the first time I'd ever gotten to see firsthand the change that I was making in our organization. I realized there's way more to this organization than getting to experience it yourself, getting to go and do all the awesome stuff I've gotten to do. But it's making that change to others that I've enjoyed the most. There's a quote from American poet Maya Angelou. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So as I leave you all here tonight, I challenge you all. At the next event you go to, take a little bit of time to not only take advantage of the opportunities you have and soak it all in, have as much fun as you can, but while you're there, try and just make a small change for another element. And that tiny little change, whether it just be eating lunch with somebody who is sitting alone, or maybe helping out in some ceremonies and getting to put forward a super awesome ceremony that airmen will remember for the rest of their lives, right? These small changes might not be much to you, but they may be monumental to those who experience them. And hopefully you can impact them as much as I've gotten to be impacted by this program myself. So with that, I'd like to thank you all and hand it back over to Luke and Andy.
Thank you, Joey. So we had a request from the audience, and we had a request for a special guest. So we do have another special guest here tonight to say hi. So say hello to Acorn Boy. Thank you, Acorn Boy. Now I'd like to turn it over to Wayne Carter, our Associate Lodge Advisor, for his comments.
Thank you to all of you for your time in giving these important presentations. This year there will be many events and opportunities for all airmen to look forward to and to attend. Tonight I would like to recognize individuals that make Kiondaga Lodge the success that we celebrate this evening. Last year we saw 43 new members completing their ordeal at the Fall Fellowships, and 21 airmen stealing their membership in the Order of Aero, becoming Brotherhood members. Some of the events that our lodge held last year includes the Summer Fellowship and the Fall Fellowship. There, for the first time, we held an event online as well as in person to adapt for the pandemic. Additionally, our officers and advisors have put a great deal of work into our first Winter Banquet live stream. It takes quite a bit of time to participate in these activities, not to mention to plan, work, and lead. Countless hours are spent conducting training events, working on agendas, running ceremonies, and cooking for that many people. These are just a few of the jobs airmen took on to help our fantastic events for others. We are already planning for the year ahead. We hope that all of our events will go on as planned, but this year gave us plenty of time to develop a list of best practices and a list of things that didn't work so well. Please pay your 2021 dues so you can be considered an active member in our lodge. You can find that form on our lodge website at kiondaga.org/forms. I encourage you to get involved in lodge leadership and activities. I have truly enjoyed watching the development of these young leaders who served our 2020 officers and look forward to our new group of officers for 2021. Now, I would like to ask Luke Schweickart to come forward for a minute, please, and Chris Felton. We have a token of appreciation for Luke for being our lodge chief for the last 2 years. Congratulations, Luke.
Thank you.
All right, now I would now move into the installation of the new officers. First, I would like to invite Luke Schweickart, our 2020 Chief, and Andy Hardgrave to come forward. All right, Luke. All right. Please make the scout sign and repeat after me. I do hereby promise on my honor as a scout
I do hereby promise on my honor as a scout
to faithfully fulfill my duties as Lodge Chief of Kiondaga Lodge of the Order of the Arrow.
to faithfully fulfill my duties as Lodge Chief of Kiondaga Lodge of the Order of the Arrow.
To live daily by the scout oath and law.
To live daily by the scout oath and scout law.
To preserve the traditions and obligation of the Order of the Arrow.
To preserve the traditions and obligation of the Order of the Arrow.
To cheerfully provide a positive example for all to see.
To cheerfully provide a positive example for all to see.
And to serve others so far as I am able.
And to serve others so far as I am able.
To this I pledge my sacred honor.
To this I pledge my sacred honor.
It is now my pleasure to introduce Andreas Hardgrave as the 2021 Chief of Kiondaga Lodge.
Would the 2021 officers of Kiondaga Lodge please join me? As Lodge Chief, it is my pleasure that my first duty tonight is to swear in you all, the 2021 officers of Kiondaga Lodge. Please make the scout sign and repeat after me. I do hereby promise.
I do hereby promise.
On my honor as a scout.
On my honor as a scout.
To faithfully fulfill my duties.
To faithfully fulfill my duties.
As Lodge Officer of Kiondaga Lodge.
As Lodge Officer of Kiondaga Lodge.
Of the Order of the Arrow.
Of the Order of the Arrow.
To live daily.
To live daily.
By the scout oath and scout law.
By the scout oath and scout law.
To preserve the traditions.
To preserve the traditions.
And obligation.
And obligation.
Of the Order of the Arrow.
Of the Order of the Arrow.
To cheerfully provide a positive example.
To cheerfully provide a positive example.
For all to see.
For all to see.
And to serve others so far as I am able.
And serve others so far as I am able.
To this I pledge my sacred honor.
To this I pledge my sacred honor.
Please join me in welcoming the 2021 officers of Kiondaga Lodge. Samuel Otway is our Vice Chief of Activities. Logan Carter is our Vice Chief of Elections. And Joshua Robbins is our Secretary of Recording. Sadly, a couple of our officers were not able to join us tonight, but Jace Lemp will be serving as our Vice Chief of Finance, and finally, Jacob Connor will be serving as our Vice Chief of Publications. Please be seated. I would like to start by thanking Luke for being such a great MC for us tonight. Okay. And also for all of his service as Lodge Chief for the past 2 terms. He has done so much administratively in setting us up with great tools for organization and communication. He has also done an extraordinary job for providing leadership for our committees and events. Along with his service to our lodge, Luke has also been an excellent mentor to me as I grew into roles of leadership. The story of how I ever became an officer for the lodge in the first place starts with Luke. I was doing service with my troop, thawing and partially cleaning fish at the Newburgh Fiddler Fest in August, when my phone started buzzing in my pocket. After I had wiped the guts and fishy water off my hands and finally got my phone out of my pocket, I was getting the first of what would be many future calls from Luke. He asked me if I was interested in serving as a vice chief of publications. I eventually agreed and was sworn in at the next LEC. Following serving as publications for 2 years, I ran for vice chief of activities and was excited to execute my ideas for fun games at the next event, which was going to be Spring Fellowship. That event was at the beginning of this past year, so just like so many other events, it had to be canceled. At that point, I was nervous that I wouldn't be able to run any activities at events for the rest of the year. But through some creative problem solving, we did manage to still have some of our events safely and even tried some new games at Fall Fellowship. As Vice Chief of Activities, I really liked focusing on fun and promoting that OA as a fun organization. I have many fun memories of things done with the OA. Definitely the most fun I've ever had was at NOAC, the National Order of the Arrow Conference, and that's in comparison with the World Jamboree. There was enough patch training to probably fill a football field, an activity field that had spar pole climbing and an inflatable pool with log rolling, and the best shows I've ever seen at a scouting event. But my favorite memory from NOAC is actually when part of our contingent went on a nighttime ice cream run to Steak and Shake, as you do. This story actually focuses on Luke as well. We had just left the show, and we're all wearing our uniforms, and Luke, being all fancy, was wearing his green dress scout shorts. We were seated and all ordered milkshakes, except for Luke, who ordered a glass of water. It was busy that night, so they seated our larger group at a smaller table. Luke had only taken one sip of his drink before he knocked over his glass and covered his shorts with water. He stood up, shrieked, and ran to the bathroom to futilely try and dry off his shorts. What made this whole tragedy especially hilarious was the Central Region Chief had been at the table next to us, so he saw one of our vice chiefs running to the bathroom with red shorts. I think memories like that can give you an idea of the random fun OA can harbor. I personally believe the level of fun and the number of people are directly proportional in having an enjoyable and memorable events. In other words, the more the merrier. Back in November, we developed some goals for the year, and one of those goals is to increase our HPL, or High Performing Lodge metrics. If you have yet to hear of what HPL is, it is the convenient tool that tracks our lodge performance based on 3 areas of data: induction rate, ordeal completion, and activation rate. While we are and will continue to work on improving all of these, I believe we have the most room to go in our induction rate and increasing our membership participation at events to in turn increase the fun. While I believe that fun is an integral part of our programs, it is always important to think back to our 3 key principles of cheerfulness, brotherhood, and service. Even with our traditions of Native American culture and ceremonies, at our core, we are a service organization. I think some people take the word service, when in the context of scouting, to mean only picking up trash and assembling picnic tables. But one of the greatest things I found about, not just the Order of the Arrow, but all of scouting, is scouts do service all the time, often without ever realizing it. We as a lodge are providing service to the council by having a program for the scouts in our honor society. Our communications team is doing service by keeping our members informed. Our ceremonialists do service for our candidates and the Native Americans whose culture we are striving to respect and honor. And all of our members do service for their units by being exemplary scouts. Service comes in many forms, and I don't think any piece of service should be taken for granted. Service is also a part of the goals we developed at Lodge Leadership Development. We are completing 3 service days at Old Bend and 1 community service project within this year to fortify our commitment to this principle. In April, we are planning to host the section conclave at Old Bend for the first time in recent memory. Recent meaning no one on our Council of Chiefs, including our section advisor, could remember the last time conclave occurred at our camp. I know I've said service 17 times now, according to what I have written here, including that most recent pastime. But I'm going to say it again. We need all the service that we can get from you in order to get our camp in shape for this major event. This is where I shamelessly plug ourselves and say follow our social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Kiondaga Lodge to stay up to date on all our events, but also those service days. Maybe I still have a knack for being a vice chief of publications. I find it interesting that the only point of the Scout Law, that's also an OA principle, is cheerful. Go ahead, say the Scout Law in your head. Scouts are kind, obedient, cheerful. I don't think this is any coincidence. There's so much to be said for having an optimistic mindset in any hardship, whether that be irksome tasks or a pandemic. I occasionally end up looking through the pictures from our events on our Google Drive and end up finding countless pictures of our members smiling while raking out a drainage ditch or cleaning up the dining hall. Of course, those pictures were from earlier years, but even in the pictures from 2020, the eyes of everyone are still cheerful. This gives me so much hope for this coming year. Because we were able to make it through last year smiling, I am certain that we can thrive this year. Another lesson I think many people took from this last year is the value of relationships. Our organization builds relationships between all of us like no other, and we call it brotherhood. Every single one of us has gone through the same ordeal with the same tests. That experience and commonality, at the very least, gives us something to break the ice. The Order of the Arrow has not always been named such, but was originally named the Weehmachtendienst. Some of you might remember from your brotherhood class that Weehmachtendienst means brotherhood. But when was the last time you heard someone describe the organization as a brotherhood? It's a word that people don't use very often anymore, and I think that's because a brotherhood connection is not very common anymore. The OA has so much to offer scouts in areas of, leadership opportunities, but also high adventure and events like NOAC. But I feel our brotherhood and fellowship is our chief attribute. Brotherhood starts like any other relationship with someone just saying hi or being friendly. Or it starts with someone calling you while you're working with fish to offer you a position. Either way, I challenge everyone to recognize the value of brotherhood and try to spread and share that with other airmen at our next events and with the other scouts you know. The relationship within brotherhood does not just exist at Old Bend or in Kiondaga Lodge, but within every single airman in our order. I am honored that you have elected and trusted me the responsibility of serving as your lodge chief for 2021, and I know that with my great group of dependable and dedicated officers and advisors, that we are going to have an amazing year. I'm excited to lead you all in the activities we will have at our fellowship weekends and in the service that we will complete in preparation for the section conclave. Please always keep in mind the principles of our order: brotherhood, cheerfulness, and service, and keep them close to your spirit. With that, I invite Christopher Felton, our staff advisor, to please come forward and make a few remarks.
All right. Well, like Luke said when we began tonight, 2020 was a tough year for everybody, not just for the lodge, but for the council and all around. However, it would have been much worse without Luke and his officers in the stead of for running the lodge for this past year. His ever-present positivity and drive to continue the lodge's great activities throughout the year was commendable beyond anything I've seen from a scout before, and exhausting at times, but it was still great. 2021 is going to be a great year to continue the great relationship between the council and the lodge. And I know John Harding and myself are very excited to see what Andy and his officers have for this next year and the success of the lodge coming in, and to be ready for all the great key 3 calls and all those fun things that we're going to go through and deal with coming up in just next week probably. So again, Luke, thank you for everything you've done for the lodge and for us, and just everything you've done this past year, and you as the officers who also helped him out with everything. It was amazing to see what a group of youth can pull together, a group of scouts can pull together when several of our adults were not able to. So it was amazing to see. So thank you guys again, and we look forward to seeing what 2021 brings. Thank you. Oh, and we'll call Andy back up to finish us out.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for our winter banquet tonight. Please join me in singing the OA song. Firm bound in brotherhood, gather the clan that cheerful service brings to fellow man. Circle our council fire, well tightly every link that binds us in brotherhood, Wimot and Dink. Again, thank you for joining us. We look forward to an awesome new year.